Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Journey to Joy, a very special Dharma Wisdom Talk webinar. My name is Vineet Chander, and I direct the Hindu Life program at Princeton University and serve as the Hindu chaplain here. We are delighted to host this special three-part webinar, and we're so grateful to the Dharmic Life program at Georgetown University, the Hindu Life program at Yale University, and the Tufts University Hindu Chaplaincy Program for co-sponsoring these talks. 2020 was a year unlike any other. Many of us find ourselves still struggling with feelings of sadness, of fear and anxiety, or of despair and hopelessness. And yet, in the midst of all of that, reflecting on this year also presents us with opportunities to reimagine and reprioritize, to revision. What are the truly important things in life? What are the values we aspire to embody individually and collectively? How do we wish to grow? However we may answer those questions for ourselves, it is undeniable that the status quo is simply lacking. The more we try to seek security and safety, the more we look for fulfillment and happiness in the bright and shiny objects of this world, the more we are inevitably let down. Something, it is clear, needs to shift. With this in mind, we gather together today for these 3 sessions to explore the journey to authentic, enduring joy. What do Hindu wisdom traditions and sacred teachings have to tell us about this journey? How can turning within towards spiritual practices help us to find a deeper sense of contentment and even joy? How can we discover our purpose or calling, and what about helping and serving others? Is spirituality simply a form of escape, or can self-reflection, introspection, and devotion help us to better serve the world around us? We are so honored to have with us 4 spiritual giants to help us unpack these questions. They are accomplished leaders, eloquent speakers, and deep thinkers, but more importantly, perhaps, they are committed sadhakas within 4 different dharmic lineages. They draw on years of dedicated practice, study, introspection, and realization to share the wisdom that they have imbibed. Each of our speakers are situated in traditions of substance, paramparas, and each have humbled themselves before their own teachers and have deeply internalized the wisdom of those who came before them. What they will share with us in this webinar is shared in a mood of serving and uplifting others, of paying it forward, of giving us the gifts and grace that themselves have received. Tonight, we will hear from Swami Sarvapriyananda and Sadhvi Bhagavati Saraswati. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, we will reconvene for our next session with Sister B.K. Shivani and Radhanath Swami. Each speaker will speak for 30 to 40 minutes. And in our final session on Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we will welcome back all 4 of our speakers for a very special open Q&A session. In the interest of time, we request that you please save your questions for the final session on Sunday. Now, to introduce our first speaker for the evening, Swami Sarvapriyananda, I'd like to call on my dear colleague and spiritual sister, Dr. Asha Shipman, Director of Hindu Life, and the Hindu chaplain at Yale University. Asha?
Thank you, Vineet. It's such a pleasure to be with you tonight and an honor to co-host these important webinar discussions and to introduce Swamiji. So let me get to that. Swami Sarvapriyananda is the minister and spiritual leader of the Vedanta Society of New York, having been appointed there since January 2017. This New York Vedanta Society was the first Vedanta society established by Swami Vivekananda in 1894, the cornerstone of what has become an enduring and important resource for Hindus in this country. Hindu college students have particularly benefited because many monks from the Vedanta societies have and continue to serve as Hindu chaplains on several college campuses in the United States. Swamiji joined the Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission in 1994 and received sannyas in 2004, before being posted to the Vedanta Society's Southern California Hollywood Temple. Swamiji served as an acharya of the Monastic Probationers Training Center at Belur Mutt and in various leadership and teaching capacities within the educational wing of the Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission. During the 2019-2020 academic year, Swamiji served a special appointment at the Harvard Divinity School through the new Nagral Fellowship. There, Swamiji contributed to the HDS community by bringing his own expertise in Vedantic philosophy and the Upanishads, alongside taking coursework in Western and Eastern philosophies and praxis. A beloved speaker, Swamiji hosts the very popular Ask Swami with Swami Sarvapriyananda. This and many of Swamiji's lectures can be accessed through the New York Vedanta Society's SoundCloud and YouTube channels. Swamiji, I turn it to you.
Thank you, Asha. I'll start with a short prayer. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you for having me in this program. And Vineet, I must congratulate you on this wonderful selection of the subject, Journey to Joy. It is personally evocative for me because I remember as clearly as if it was yesterday, about 25, 26 years ago when I became a monk. I was a novice at this ashram in Deoghar, and we had a very senior monk there who had been a monk for more than 60 years. He was in his late 80s by that time. And I still remember the day he pulled me close and he gave me some advice in which figured this Bengali phrase, Anonde Thakbe, which means stay in bliss, roughly translated means stay in bliss, stay in joy. And I took it as a kind of a mantra and a blessing for my life. I guess that has been my journey too, a journey to joy. And it's such a wonderful way of characterizing Hinduism. Heinrich Zimmer, the noted Indologist and philosopher, he notes in his Philosophies of India that the philosophies of India are not pessimistic. I mean, even though they talk about Maya and Dukkha, suffering, they are optimistic. Because they talk about an ultimate solution, moksha, nirvana, kaivalya, freedom from suffering and attainment of fulfillment. Houston Smith, in his classic Religions of the World, when he talks about Hinduism, he says, while trying to make sense of the enormous complexities and diversities of Hinduism, what's the one theme that can explain all of it, that can characterize all of it? And he says, it is this, that one can attain fulfillment. Ultimate fulfillment is possible. Hinduism says you can have what you want. First, through the worldly and otherworldly goals of karma, artha, and dharma, but finally, through spiritual freedom, through spiritual praxis and freedom, through moksha. Sri Ramakrishna, there's a description of him in Samadhi. Those who saw him in spiritual ecstasy said as if joy was bursting forth. That was the best description of him, as if something within is joyously, bursting forth from within him. Not just in spiritual ecstasy, in day-to-day life also. Spirituality gives us the gift of joy, of good humor. Swami Vivekananda, who just now Asha mentioned Swami Vivekananda, who established this Vedanta Society. He was so full of humor and joy that one day an American lady asked him, "Oh, Swami, aren't you ever serious?" And the Swami replied gravely, "Yes, ma'am, I am serious, only when I have a tummy ache." So this is the blessing of spirituality. The Vedanta says the very goal of Vedanta, the ultimate purpose of spirituality, is atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptischa, complete cessation or transcendence of sorrow and attainment of ultimate fulfillment. That there is an ultimate fulfillment, and it is possible to have that, and it is the goal of our lives. Whatever we are trying to do in life, we are on a journey to joy. If you do it consciously, then you are a spiritual seeker. And otherwise, you might just say, "Oh, I'm not spiritual, I'm just living my life," but you're on the same journey too, just unknowingly so. The Taittiriya Upanishad, in the one of the fundamental texts of Advaita Vedanta, has a whole section, analysis of joy. So the crucial idea here is, I can't put it better than in the words of the Chandogya Upanishad, "Yo vai bhuma tat sukham," that which is the infinite, that is happiness, that is joy. Na alpe sukham asti. There is really no joy in the limited. So this journey to joy, it is a journey to infinitude, to limitlessness, beyond the limits of sorrow and disease and frustration and desire and death, beyond that to immortality and freedom. How do we access this joy, this final spiritual joy? How do we get it? Today, I will share with you the 4 broad ways, the major ways which we find in Hinduism, which would take us on this journey to joy. So each of them is a fundamental insight into the human condition. The first one, the first path we can take on our journey to joy is this idea of unselfishness. We see all around that one of the greatest sources of unhappiness is this obsession with self. And there's a good reason why we are obsessed with ourselves. The idea is that it comes naturally to us. I want to be happy, and it seems obvious to me that if I work for myself, if I do things for myself, then I'll be happy. If I work to make myself happy, I'll be happy. That seems so intuitively correct. But what happens is, as we go through life, accumulating gadgets and money and academic degrees and achievements and vacations and endless selfies and photographs, all of that, over the years, we find we have gained very little. Just imagine, for example, this little experiment, what you had for breakfast in front of you on the table, and add to that what you had for dinner, and add to that what you had for lunch yesterday and breakfast yesterday, add to that what you had for food you ate for the last 1 week. Very soon you'll run out of space on your table, in your living room. You'll have to move out into the garden maybe. As we keep on adding all at once, if I try to see all the food that I've eaten, just one person, I've eaten in the last 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years, it'll be mountains of rice and lakes of dal maybe, huge amounts of food. We never think about it that way, how it has poured into this one little body, the amount of resources, and that's just food. Imagine the energy that we have consumed over the 30, 40, 50, 60 years of our life, the help that we have got from teachers and workmen and farmers, all of whom have worked to keep this going, this one little body. Ask ourselves, at the end of it all, right now, today, at the end of 30, 40 years of this enormous consumption, even the demons, the Rakshasas of mythology wouldn't be, you wouldn't imagine them eating so much as each of us, we have done in our lives, how much have we got? What are we left with in the end? After this enormous expense of resources for this one person, one unit. Forget what we have given back to society, very little. But even selfishly, we wanted to be happy, we wanted to be fulfilled. Are we? Does it work? We are brought to this realization that it is not working. This one-pointed pursuit of selfish goals to, I, me, mine, it doesn't work. Ultimately, unfortunately, it doesn't culminate in what it was supposed to do, give me happiness. It just disappears like a mirage. On the other hand, unselfishness, altruism, concern for others and compassion, a concern for the welfare of others, working for the welfare of others is immediately paying. Swami Vivekananda said, unselfishness is actually more paying, but it just takes maturity to understand that. One does not come to it immediately. It takes some amount of experience and effort looking at life to understand that unselfishness is more paying. This constant obsession with my problems, my goals, my sorrows, what others are thinking of me, the introduction of the ego and its associates, I, me, mine, this spoils the whole thing. Let me share with you a rather dramatic example. I saw this very senior monk several years ago. He has passed on now. This monk, old monk, he was paralyzed in both his legs, one of his arms, and he was blind in two eyes. For more than a decade, he lay helpless on a bed. You might think this person would be unhappy. He was one of the happiest persons I've ever seen. He just radiated confidence, joy. He would cheer you up, lift you up. When you go to him, you have to introduce yourself because he can't see you. You have to say, I'm so and so, I have come from such monastery. And then he would be all about asking about you and the people in the monastery, how people are doing, and he would offer words of encouragement. And I would just think, looking at this person, this luminous being in a broken body, this person is happier than us. How is this possible? Swami Vivekananda said, they alone live who live for others. The rest are more dead than alive. And I would look at this old monk lying on the bed there, and I will think, he is more alive than us. This case is especially interesting because that person, that old monk, he could not actually do anything for you. He didn't have money. He couldn't have. He didn't have. Even the body didn't work. He couldn't even see you. But because he was not at all about himself, his own miseries, his own terrible physical state didn't even figure in his awareness. He was just full of goodwill and good wishes for everybody. It's a powerful lesson. The less we think about ourselves, the more we are concerned for others, the more we are happy. It's counterintuitive. And all the insights I'll share with you today are counterintuitive. They don't come naturally. You have to come to them. We have to learn that. That's part of the wisdom of Hinduism. This is called karma yoga. Karma is action, the things that we do. And usually it is selfish. It is concerned with myself. And karma yoga is reversing that, turning that around. The actions that we do, our knowledge, our wealth, our energy, our expertise, our time, the more we use them to benefit others, for the service of others, that is karma yoga. This is just the reverse of the way we think about karma. So the less we think about ourselves and our selfish goals, the happier we are. A karma yogi is very, very happy. So this is one journey, one way of the journey to joy, from selfishness to unselfishness. This is the journey. There is another way. One of the great problems of the modern age is distraction, this scattered mind. Swami Vivekananda said that the difference between an ordinary person and a great person lies in the degree of concentration, in the ability to focus. One of the well-known modern positive psychologist, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, has written this classic book called Flow. where he says the most precious thing that we have is attention. And the more we can concentrate, focus this limited attention, our limited cognitive bandwidth, the better the quality of our life is. He says that the quality of our life depends on what we put our mind to, and how much of it, what we are thinking about, what we are attending to, and how much of our mind, how much of our attention we give to it. If we attend to something meaningful, something worthwhile, constructive, and focus on it, our lives will be much better. He talks about a state of flow where there's effortless concentration on a meaningful activity. That's how he defines it. It's a wonderful book. I greatly recommend it. And there he talks about Patanjali Yoga. He says the best way I know of attaining flow, these flow experiences, is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So another psychologist, Daniel Goleman, who is well known for for introducing the term emotional intelligence, he too has written a book on concentration recently, Flow. The book is called Focus. He says, I was approached by parents and teachers and corporate executives who are hiring young people today. And he says all of them have the same complaint, that young people today seem to have lost the ability to focus, to hold their attention on something for a prolonged period of time. And one reason is, of course, the social media today. It's an age of distraction where you move from one thing to another all the time. And this can actually increase unhappiness. There is this new movie which is very popular on university campuses now. It's called The Social Dilemma. I watched it too. And it shows how all these social media platforms, they have their own objective. The whole idea there is to make money out of our attention. They are not charging us, but there's this saying that if you're offered something for free, then you are the product, you are on sale. And what is on sale is our attention. They make money off our attention. They call it the attention economy. But it has disastrous effects on us. Consider, if you spend 2 or 3 hours browsing aimlessly on a computer, and at the end of it, how do you feel? You feel frustrated at having wasted time. You feel more disintegrated. Imagine spending those 3 hours on a book which you like, and with great focus, you read that book for 3 hours. At the end of it, apart from all the gains, one feels more integrated psychologically. One feels enriched, better off. This scattered mind, distracted mind actually leads to unhappiness. We do not think so. We think we are having a good time when we throw our mind into a dozen different things, Twitter and text messages and whatnot, social media platforms and so on and so forth. And but the end result is unhappiness. It is focus or concentration which gives happiness. Patanjali Yoga says that when we systematically learn to calm down the mind, settle down physically, settle down mentally, the breath is settled down, and we concentrate. In the calm mind, the reality of ourselves that comes forth. In the way of Karma Yoga, we reach the infinity, the vastness, through being not concerned with the little self, being more concerned with the welfare of others. We reach out to vastness. In the Patanjali Yoga, we look inwards, calm down the mind, and we realize that our real nature, which is awareness, is actually limitless. That vastness is within us, and we attain that, or we realize that, by letting go of limiting, fleeting, changing thoughts, feelings, emotions. So concentration leads to happiness. Distraction leads to unhappiness. This is the second great insight I wanted to share with you today. So the journey from the journey to joy is a journey from distraction to focus. So that's another way of looking at it. This is called Dhyana Yoga or Raja Yoga, the path of meditation. Again, another path, a third way of this journey to joy is that of love, of devotion, of bhakti. We think that by satisfying desires, we'll be happy. It's almost instinctive. Nobody has to teach us that. I want so many things in this life. I want tasty cookies. I want to spend time with a friend. I want to browse the internet maybe. I want to do 100 different things in the world, and that'll make me happier and happier. We are here in New York, and the city proudly says it's a city that never sleeps. So if they don't sleep, what do they do? I saw in an airport a slogan, "Welcome to New York, the city that never sleeps but dreams." So, what New Yorkers do is they work hard 6 days a week, and in the weekends they party hard, and then again are back to working hard 6 days a week again. Now, this kind of enormous distraction, this kind of pursuit of 100 different desires, does it lead to happiness? Asha was just saying that when I came to the United States, I was first posted to the Vedanta Society in Hollywood. So I've stayed in some interesting places. Hollywood is one of them. And then I came to New York. And last year I spent in Boston at Harvard. These places have interesting characteristics. What is the prime desire there? What is the paradigm? In Hollywood, the desire is to make it in the movie industry. If you're famous and glamorous in the movie industry, that's you ought to be happy. In New York, it's okay to be famous or glamorous, but you really have to be rich. Money is the goal which is pursued. If you're rich, you've made it, you ought to be happy. In Harvard, it's not being glamorous or being rich so much, but being a professor and being published and highly regarded. And if you're a Nobel Prize winner, you're at the top of the food chain. What makes you happy? Does Hollywood make you happy, or Wall Street make you happy, or Harvard make you happy? Sri Ramakrishna said, if you have a string of zeros, if you put them one after another, at the end of it, it's still zero. But if you have one, then each zero gets value. You add 1 0, it's 10, and 2 zeros, it's 100, and then 1,000, and so on. All of these external things, desires and satisfying desires, whether it's for wealth or even learning or even film or entertainment, whatever it is, by themselves, they are not fulfilling. By themselves, they are not fulfilling. You need something before that. The great psychologist Erich Fromm, he said, we do not know, our modern culture does not know what joy is. What we have substituted for joy is building up tension and releasing it. So we build up tension, desire, I want something. And the advertising industry and our culture teaches us, want glamour and success and money and power and academic achievements. And that should make you happy. So we build up this tension and then we release it. And we get a little burst of pleasure, a little tickling of the nerves, a little excitement, but then it's gone. And then we want more. Economists know that this is the well-known curve of diminishing marginal utility. The more you keep trying to satisfy these desires, the less and less happiness you get at the end of it. Bhakti Yoga says if you reverse this, again counterintuitive, it is not by satisfying 100 desires or 1,000 desires that we attain to true, lasting, worthwhile joy. Rather, you focus this entire desire, all of it, in love, in devotion, in worship of God. Remember, our theme was going to the infinite. In the infinite alone is joy. Now, the infinite is now conceived of as God, the God of religion. So you have a wide range of theistic traditions in Hinduism. The greatest happiness, a monk, I remember, he said that, do you want happiness right now? Lasting happiness? Sublime, deep happiness? Yes, who wouldn't want it? Right now, effortlessly. Yes, who wouldn't want it? He said, fall in love with God. Fall in love with God. Love gives happiness, but love of God gives the purest, highest, most lasting and satisfying form of happiness. There is great joy when you have faith in God. The Naradiya Bhakti Sutra says, Sarvada sarva bhavena bhagavan eva bhajaniya nischintitaihi. It says, at all times, not just in the prayer room, but at all times. Sarva bhavena, in all ways, not just when you are sitting and praying or meditating or doing puja, but also in other ways, when you're listening to bhajans, when you are serving people, working in the office, in every aspect of life, always, there's only one thing worth adoring, worshipping, loving. Bhagavan eva, the Lord alone. And do it nishchintirehi, with a mind free of anxiety. If I think about God all the time, who's going to do my work? Don't worry, it will get done. You will do it, but you'll do it with a much happier frame of mind. Sri Ramakrishna gives the very beautiful example of children playing, and they love to whirl round and round. They hold on to a pillar and go round and round, and they're very careful of not letting go of the pillar. It's joyous, but they're careful about not letting go of the pillar. Similarly, hold on to God in surrender, in adoration, prayer, and devotion. And then this going round and round, do the round of duties in the world, whatever you have to do, everything becomes a worship of God, and everything becomes play, a leela, and there is great joy. And the bhakta's joy is the highest joy. I remember this monk in the Himalayas who was a jnani, a non-dualist. So you wouldn't expect him to support bhakti. So somebody sort of half mischievously asked him, what is greater, bhakti or jnana, knowledge or love, devotion or love or knowledge? Kaun badi hai, bhakti ya jnana, in Hindi? And he answered in Hindi, saying that, oh, bhakti badi hai, devotion is always greater. And people were taken aback. They didn't expect that answer from him. And then they asked, or gyan, what about knowledge? And he said, gyan mein bada chota nahi hota. There is no greater or lesser in knowledge. So that thereby preserving the glory of both paths. But it shows that devotion gives you great, great joy. So this is the journey to joy. From 1,000 desires to the one love of God, from desire to devotion. And finally, the greatest mystery of all, who am I? The journey to realize the truth about ourselves. You see, when the Upanishad says, Yo vai bhuma tat sukham, that which is the infinite, that is joy. Nalpe sukham asti, there is no joy in the limited. The Upanishad teaches us, you are that infinite. Tat tvamasi, thou art that, again in the Chandogya Upanishad. So this is the final mystery. That infinitude which we are seeking, that which is the source of all our joy, that is us. Somehow or the other, we do not know what we are. Again, Vivekananda would say to his American disciples sometimes here, with a touch of pathos, he would say, if only you knew what you truly are. Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta says that you inquire into your own self, the path of self-inquiry. When we inquire into what we are, we begin to realize that we are not limited to this body, which is born the other day, which will age and die soon. I was reading about this monk who came to England, and he saw an advertisement in which, an insurance advertisement, in which they show this young girl who within a period of a few seconds ages from her childhood to teens to middle age to old age and stops. And then, of course, they want you to get insurance. So it just scares you enough to spend money for insurance. And the monk said, I noticed how they didn't go any further. Because if you go further, you would have shown that you just keep getting older and older and sicker, and then you die. And then you might realize that. So the insurance company didn't want to scare you so much, just enough so that you would buy the insurance and spend money. But it's true. The body is going to die at one day or the other, no matter how much gluten-free and yoga we do, it still is going to die one day. The mind is a series of changes. When we look at, mostly we identify with the mind. We think of ourselves as embodied minds. When you look at the mind, thoughts, feelings, emotions come and go all the time. Beyond this body and mind, there is this witness consciousness, the awareness, which we are. Often people say, oh, so I have an awareness, an Atman, a witness consciousness. Not I have it, you are it. You shine upon the mind, and through the mind experience the body, and through the body experience the world. So this is the first insight that we get in the path of Advaita Vedanta. There are different paths are taught to us, different methods of self-inquiry called vichara, atma vichara. There is, for example, the well-known Panchakosha in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad talks about the Panchakosha Viveka, where you are asked to draw your attention to the physical body first and note that I am aware of it. Just as I am aware of a book, I'm aware of the body too. The body is an object. I am the one that is aware of the object. The body continuously changes. I am aware of all the changes, so I cannot be changing with the changes. I am aware of it. The body is not aware of me. So this changing body and the unchanging I, this object body and the subject I, this non-conscious body, insentient body, and the sentient I, how can they be the same? They must be different. And as we center ourselves in that, we begin to see I cannot be the body. Then you are asked to draw your attention inwards to something subtler, the breath, which stands for the whole of prana, breathing in, breathing out. And immediately we are asked to notice that that's also an object. I'm aware of it. It comes in, it goes. There are long breaths and short breaths, and I'm aware of all of them. They keep changing. I am the unchanging. I'm aware of the breath. The breath is not aware of me because it changes, because it's an object, and because it is not sentient. I, the unchanging subject awareness, cannot be the breath. And so we say, I'm not the breath either. And then we look into something deeper, the mind and thoughts and feelings. And that's where most of us stop, actually. We say, nobody really says, I'm a mass of flesh and bones, or I'm the breath or something like that. But we say that I'm a mind. I'm an embodied mind, a person in this body. That's what most people think instinctively. But the Upanishad tells us, and Vedanta says, look, isn't it true that the mind continuously changes too? It's so much change from morning till evening, so many thoughts, feelings, emotions, they come and go. And they all are revealed to you. So you do not come and go with the thoughts and feelings. You are the unchanging witness of this mind. And you are aware of the mind. The mind is not aware of you. That may sound rather weird. We don't think about it that way. But it's true. Just as I'm aware of this book, the book is not aware of me in exactly the same way. Mind is a subtler object, but I'm aware of the thoughts in the mind. The thoughts are not aware of me. I'm awareness. The mind is not aware. I am unchanging. The mind is changing. I am the subject. The mind is an object composed of thoughts, feelings. They are objects. Go deeper. Same with the intellect, the process of understanding. Go deeper than that. And then you have something called the Anandamaya, the blankness which you experience in deep sleep. Now, this whole system, the 5 koshas, so to say, the 5 sheets of the human personality, which the Taittiriya Upanishad talks about, we normally identify ourselves with that. We think that's what we are. But the Upanishad, step by step, from the gross to the subtle, from the outer to the inner, takes us to an awareness that we are awareness itself. We are that awareness which shines upon the body-mind, the physical body, Annamaya Kosha, the pranic body, the Pranamaya Kosha, the mental body, the Manomaya Kosha, the intellect, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, and beyond that, the causal, the Anandamaya Kosha. The 5 sheets are objects. They are subject to change. They are not sentient. I am the awareness which shines upon them. The Upanishad says, beautiful language, Tameva bhantam anubhati sarva, tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. That shining, everything else shines. By its light, everything is lit up. You shining, everything else, all these 5 sheets of the personality of the body, of the physical body-mind system, they shine, they are lit up. By your light, they are lit up. This light which we are, this is not limited. The body is limited, prana is limited, mind is limited, but this consciousness which shines upon all of them, it neither comes and goes. It uses beautiful language, Panchadashi. It's a sun which neither rises nor sets, ever shining. And there's no sunset or sunrise in the sun itself. In the same way, You, the consciousness, you are ever shining. You are not limited by the body or the prana or the mind or the intellect. You're not limited by time and space. You might say, how is that possible? Am I not located in time and space? The body is located in space. Even thoughts are located in time. But that awareness, that's where even time is located. Even space is located there. A monk giving a talk on Vedanta in Haridwar, very interesting. The monk is talking, you are all pervading, he says in Hindi. And another monk at the back of the hall says, just a minute, Swami, I'm just sitting here. I don't even pervade. I'm not even covering the whole of the hall. How can I be all pervading? I'm here and not even there. How can I be all pervading? And the teacher said, but here and there, are they not both equally in your awareness? Even this here and there, space, you are aware of space. Space is in your awareness, and space appears in your awareness. Imagine the space that you would see in a dream. Is it apart from you? When you wake up, you see all of that space. Was you? It was nothing other than you. All space, all time, all action, time, space, events, they all happen or they appear on the film screen of your consciousness, of your awareness. This awareness is the vast, is the unlimited. And being unlimited, it's not subject to any kind of sorrow, any kind of want, any kind of desire. It is always fulfilled. So realizing that is our nature, we attain the goal of Vedanta. Dukkha nivritti, paramananda prapti, transcendence of sorrow, attainment of ultimate bliss. So this is the vast, and there's a process for that. And the process is Shravanam, Manana, Nididhyasana. You stay with it all the time. That is these teachings. That is Shravana, hearing these teachings, systematically studying them. And then after you have done that, you might have many questions. You were bound to have many questions. And these questions, you have to deal with them, reason it out. That is the stage of Mananam, reasoning it out. At the end of this stage of Mananam, you have a conviction that I know these teachings and I understand them. And then we assimilate these teachings, stay with it, soak these in. Swami Vivekananda says, till it tingles with every drop of your blood. Then it becomes a living reality, that I am actually not the body and the mind, which are there. And I am this unlimited consciousness, awareness, operating through a body and mind. Then you live your life. It's a life of fulfillment. It's not a life where we are seeking fulfillment from the world. It's a life where you're rather ready to give and serve out of the bounty of your infinitude. This is called Brahmananda, the bliss of Brahman. The bliss of Brahman is not a particular kind of bliss. It is bliss itself, but it is expressed in the mind as great bliss. So an enlightened person, a spiritually advanced person, would be a very joyful person. The text Panchadashi talks about how what is the source of the joy of an enlightened person? Why are spiritual people so joyful? And the Panchadashi says, imagine the contentment and the fulfillment if you have kritakrityataya, having done what is to be done in human life. You've accomplished it. Then praptavya praptataya, what is to be gathered or got in human life, you've got it, enlightenment. Gyatavya gyatataya, what is to be known in human life, the ultimate reality, you have known it. Imagine the peace and the joy and the deep, unshakable contentment. The Bhagavad Gita says, attaining which there is nothing greater to be attained, established in which the greatest of sorrows cannot shake you. So that is when we find the infinity within ourselves. This is called the path of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. So here are the 4 great insights. All of them are counterintuitive. They don't come naturally. You have to learn it. The journey from the journey to joy is a journey from selfishness to unselfishness. It is a journey from distraction to focus. It is a journey from desire to devotion. It is a journey from self-ignorance to self-knowledge. And I think I've got just a minute. I'll just end with something. A very interesting discussion I had with a professor at Harvard University last year, very formidable professor of Indian philosophy, Professor Parimal Patil. And he said, Swami, how many people attain enlightenment? You know, all these monks and all, how many of them attain enlightenment? Very few, you must admit, very few. Why would you pursue a spiritual path if the chances of success are so low? What is your answer? So I gave him 2 answers, and he gave me a third answer, which is wonderful. I'll share all these 3 answers with you. Why should we pursue this path? Whether it is in Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga or Raja Yoga or Jnana Yoga, Swami Vivekananda recommended a harmony of all these yogas. But why pursue it? The 2 answers I gave was that, first of all, everybody will get enlightenment. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when you come to Benares, it is the city of Annapurna, the Divine Mother. Everybody gets fed, but some in the morning, some in the afternoon, and some have to wait till sunset. But everybody gets fed. Similarly, enlightenment is there for everybody. It's our real nature. Why should we not become enlightened? But it might take many lives. Second, what else will you do? Once you get the taste of spiritual life, there is nothing else quite like it. That becomes the center of your life. So the second reason is that once you understand what spiritual life is, once you taste it, there is nothing which comes even close. You will do that only. Doesn't matter if you get enlightenment in this life or not. And then he said, the professor said to me, both of them are good answers, but they're a little theoretical. I'll give you a practical answer. And he gave a most beautiful answer. He said, quite apart from whether you will ultimately get enlightenment or not, once you enter this life and you practice devotion and meditation and service and the quest for self-knowledge, the benefits from day to day are so much. And he used the word joy. The joy that comes into your life may not be the great Brahmananda which you're aiming for, but every day the joy that you get, that sustains you. That's why most people are spiritual and walk on this path of spirituality, because of the joy and the strength that they get every day. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vineet.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. We're just indebted to you for that beautiful explication. And thank you so much for, in such a coherent and clear, lucid way, just illuminating these 4 different approaches, these 4 different yoga paths, and their practical relevance on our own journey to joy. So we're so grateful. Swamiji has to perhaps leave us a little bit earlier this evening, so he'll stay with us as long as he can, and then he has another obligation. But please do join us again on Sunday, where I know several people have been putting in questions in the Q&A box. We don't have the time right now to do a Q&A session, but we invite you to reiterate your questions on Sunday when Swamiji will be back with us, along with the rest of our speakers. We also want to take a moment to recognize and to welcome Radhanath Swamiji, who is going to be speaking tomorrow and on Sunday with the other speakers, but who is in attendance this evening. So we offer our welcome and our pranams to Radhanath Swamiji as well. It is now my great fortune and honor to introduce our next speaker, Sadhvi Bhagavati Saraswati Ji. Sadhvi Ji is a renowned spiritual leader and motivational speaker based in Rishikesh, India. At Paramarth Niketan, where she lives most of the year, she gives daily spiritual discourses or satsangs. She teaches meditation. She provides spiritual counseling and mentoring. And of course, she engages in her own very deep spiritual practice, which she's been doing for more than 2 decades at Paramarth Niketan. Sadhviji was raised in an American family in California and graduated from Stanford University. While completing her PhD in 1996, she left America and traveled to India, and her journey brought her to live at Paramarth Niketan, where she was officially initiated into the order of sannyas, or monastic renunciation, by His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswati Ji, one of the most revered spiritual leaders in India and the president of Paramarth Niketan. Sadhviji has her PhD in psychology, and in addition to her spiritual practice, she is quite active in overseeing myriad charitable and humanitarian projects and activities. Among other roles she plays, she serves as the Secretary General of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, an international interfaith organization dedicated to clean water, sanitation, and hygiene. She also serves as president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a foundation which runs free schools, vocational training programs, and empowerment programs, and is also the director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival, which is held at Paramarth Niketan. Sadhviji is a regular speaker at several United Nations events, including with the Secretary General and Deputy Secretary General of the UN, and at many high-level international conferences and summits. She is the author of 2 best-selling books, By God's Grace, which is a biography of her guru, Swami Chidanand Saraswati Ji, and Come Home to Yourself, a book of wisdom teachings published by Penguin Random House. She also served as managing editor for the monumental project of the 11-volume Encyclopedia of Hinduism. She continues to contribute regularly for a variety of esteemed publications and is a renowned and sought-after motivational speaker and educator. We're so honored to have her with us and to have this opportunity to host her this evening. Sadhviji.
Thank you so much, Vineetji. It's such a joy to be here. And first of all, my deep and humble pranam to Puja Radhanath Swamiji and Puja Swami Sarva Priyanandaji. It's such a gift and a blessing to be in your presence. And of course, these wonderful technologies of Zoom and cameras and wires and computers and all of the contraptions that we have that have been such a great blessing during this time. I keep thinking back to what it must have been like in the Spanish flu in the early 1800s, what it must have been like to go through these sorts of great planetary challenges without this technology. And yet, the wires are not what has connected us. Zoom did not connect us. Webcams have not connected us. All they've done is made it easier for us to access the truth that already exists, the truth of our connection. They've reminded us of how connected we are. So it's just such a great joy to have all of these reminders of our connection, all of these wonderful technologies to make that connection accessible. And in so many ways, that's actually what our spiritual practice is. Meditation does not bring God. Meditation does not make you divine. Meditation enables us to recognize the divinity in ourselves and in the world. Meditation enables us to access the spiritual truth. So I've come to think, people say, you're spiritual people, you're meditators, you're satsang givers. How does it feel to be sitting in front of, cameras and wires and computers all day? And I've come to realize that they're actually just another method of sadhana. But in the same way that whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's seva, whatever form of our bhakti, gyan, karma, yoga we're doing, none of that brings God. They're just ways of knowing, ways of accessing truth, ways of cleaning our windshields, our windows, so that we can experience the truth. So I've come to think of these cameras and wires and contraptions as yet another tool for sadhana, something that reminds us of how deeply connected we are to each other, of how there really isn't anywhere I end and you begin. So thank you so much for the beautiful opportunity to be with you today, this morning, this evening, this afternoon, depending on where in the world or where physically located on this planet we all are. Because of course we know the world is that which we create in our minds, but where we are located planetarily. And especially to be able to talk about joy, because this is what we're all looking for. Whatever we do in the world, we do it to bring joy. We may have very, very base concepts of what joy is. We may think that joy is a pizza, joy is an ice cream cone, joy is a movie. And so we eat ice cream or go to the movies. We may have a somewhat more sophisticated, deeper concept of joy. Joy is in community. Joy is in connection. Joy is in relation. So we go out and we cultivate communities and relationships. We may have even a deeper sense. Joy is in awareness. Joy is in consciousness. Joy is in truth. And so we meditate and we pray and we do seva and we surrender our lives, our minutes, our moments to our spiritual practice. But from the most shallow we could say to the most deep we could say, all of them are ways of accessing joy, according to what our understanding of joy is. And so it's something that we're all looking for. The dilemma is that the vast majority of people, tragically, and this is what our culture keeps teaching us, is that joy is something to be had when I get, when I attain, when I achieve, when I just earn this or get this, then I'll be happy. When I get what I want, then I will be happy. And actually, the truth of joy is the opposite. Joy is not about getting what you want. Joy is about wanting what you have. So it's all in the mind. And of course, we're taught in the scriptures, man eva manishyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. The mind. The mind is the key. The key to your bondage or the key to your slavery. And yet, so many of us spend so much of life thinking, if I just got that job, or could live in this area of town, or had this car, or get, this certificate, this teacher's training certificate, do the advanced course in this or that. If I just could do a perfect Shirshasana or whatever our vision may be, then I would be happy. And so we engage in this pursuit of purpose. As you're based in America, as I'm currently located planetarily in America these days, I think about the US Constitution. And the American Constitution grants us the right to life, to liberty, and to the pursuit of happiness. And while I know that, of course, the founders of this nation, the writers of the Constitution, certainly had our best interest at heart, I actually think that that's one of the gravest disservices that we've done to the American people. And when we make our children in school memorize aspects of the Constitution, memorize the Bill of Rights, memorize all of these very core civic studies things that we learn and we memorize in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. What does it do? Well, it gives us this sanskara that, yes, we've got the right to life, wonderful. We've got the right to liberty, freedom, wonderful. In another conversation, we of course could talk about the ways that we have misunderstood freedom in this country, the ways that we have misunderstood what it really means to be free, and that freedom is not a license to decadence or a license to selfishness or a license to harm others. But I'll save that for a different conversation. But we also learn that we have the right to pursue happiness, which means that happiness is something to be pursued, which means happiness is something I don't have now. It is not with me now. It must be pursued, and I have the right to pursue it. And I think that is one of the greatest tragedies. And of course, this is a tragedy that permeates so much of the world. It is by no means limited to those studying the US Constitution in 7th grade civics classes. We live believing happiness is something to be pursued, or happiness is a path, happiness is a journey, as you've said in the topic here. All of which imply that happiness is not with me here. Yet our sages, our saints, our gurus, our scriptures remind us in so many ways, so many mantras, so many shlokas, so many epics and teachings, that happiness exists only right here and right now. I cannot be happy tomorrow. I cannot be happy yesterday. My only chance of happiness is right here, right now, in this moment. And that's where all of the practices of spirituality come in. Even if our highest goal is not moksha, I'm not the spiritual police to say your highest goal must be moksha. Or if you do yoga, you must be committed to going all the way to the 8th limb of samadhi. Sure, we hope people will. We hope people will understand that. But even if not, there's so many people who say, I just want to be happy. Like, maybe I'm not interested in liberation. Maybe I'm not interested in being jiva mukti. Maybe I just want to be happy. Maybe I just want to find peace. The answer is the same. Because without the spiritual practice, happiness is always something that's an arm's length away. I remember after I had been living in India for maybe a year, maybe 2 years or so, when I was back in America visiting, and I conducted a test. Now, I'm a scientist by heart, by academic background. I love science. I love the place where science and spirituality overlap, which again, as a topic for another discussion, is a much, much bigger place than people think. Science and spirituality are not opposites. They're actually simply two different ways into the same same river. But again, a topic for another talk. So I conducted this. And what I did was I spoke to about 10 different people I know. People who were either family members or close friends. And some I met personally, some I spoke to on the phone. And I asked each of them, in the midst of chatty conversation, are you happy? And what I got was one of two answers. And these 10 people, by the way, the reason I chose these 10 is every one of them was at the absolute pinnacle of their field. So it was someone who was the CEO of a billion-dollar company, someone who was a renowned actress in Hollywood, someone who was a singer with songs in the top 10 on the radio, was in 97, 98 when people actually still listen to the radio in top 10 lists. It was someone who was a tenured professor at Stanford. So all these different spheres of life and work, and every one of them gave me one of two answers. It was either I will be happy when, and they had different fill in the blanks, or I would be happy if. And again, different fill in the blanks. Sometimes it was, the kids grow up and go off to college, or I get the promotion I wanted, or I lose 10 pounds, or my husband works less, or whatever it might be. But every one of them, people at the absolute top of their chosen field, people who the rest of the world is forsaking their spiritual practice, their health, their sleep in order to run on a treadmill and become. Every one of these people still had one thing between them and happiness. And for me, it was the most personal and best evidence that joy is not something that comes from what you achieve or acquire. Because surely if it were, then people at these heights no longer would have happiness an arm's length away. But they did. And this is where we get into that hedonic treadmill, that sense of just one more, just one more. It's what our rishis and sages reminded us. Desires create more desires. This is the game of the mind. Thoughts beget thoughts. Desires beget desires. More and more and more. And this is where we go inside and we realize that that joy is only within. And it comes from knowing the truth of who I am through this practice of Jnana Yoga, this practice of Bhakti Yoga, of love, and Karma Yoga. And I'll take a few minutes and go into this. And also we'll talk about our purpose, our Dharma. Now, first of all, when we talk about Dharma, these days, the world of New Age, spirituality, psychology, self-help, motivation is so rooted in finding your purpose, find your meaning, find your passion. And that's great. But the dilemma is that it gets wrapped up in this concept of glamour and romance, that somehow my purpose, my Dharma, is going to be something that is so extraordinary, nobody's ever thought of it before. It's going to be something that is so romantic, so glamorous, that I'm going to be on the cover of magazines once I figure out what it is. Once I find that purpose and dharma, I won't stop. There won't be pain in my life. There won't be difficulty. Everything will just go according to how I want it. And of course, we only have to look as far as the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, to realize how not true that is. Right? When Bhagwan Krishna is explaining to Arjuna about Dharma and about standing up and fighting the war, Bhagwan Krishna is not saying to him, oh, and you're going to just love it. It's going to be so much fun. Everybody's going to love you. They're going to, put you on magazine covers. You're going to love every minute of it. It's going to feel great. No more pain, no more suffering. But Krishna didn't make any of those promises. It's very clear if you read even a few lines of the Mahabharata, that promise of fulfilling our dharma is not a promise for a life free of challenges or difficulties. It is not a promise for a life of glamour and romance. It is a promise for a life of being anchored in truth. And that's really important when we are surrounded these days by a world that has us convinced that if I just figure out my purpose, all of my difficulties will go away. The other important piece about Dharma in our today's world, or purpose in today's world, is don't expect it to pay the bill. That's the other big misconception that a lot of the world of New Age motivation is rooted in, is that somehow every one of us should find a career, should have a way of paying the bills that is our Dharma. And if you can't, then somehow you just haven't found it. And that is a very, very severe misconception. Your purpose. Now, first of all, also, it's not that we only have one Dharma or one purpose. It's throughout our life. As we go from in a normal life phase, as we shift from a brahmacharya ashram phase to a grihastha ashram phase to a vanprastha ashram to a sannyas ashram phase, our dharma shifts. In different relationships, our dharma is different. Our dharma as a child to our parents, or a spouse to our spouse, or a parent to our children is different. So also remember, we don't only have one dharma. Is not always something that pays the bills. You think about people who are artists, musicians, poets, creators. Well, no one pays the bills unless you happen to be one of the very, very few musicians, artists, poets who actually gets famous and pays the bills through it. But just because you're not discovered as a poet or a musician, and just because you're not paid to do your art, doesn't mean that isn't a purpose. You may have to take a job that's a skill you have, working 9 to 5, to be able to put food on the table, because one of your dharmas is to feed your family, if you want, to provide for them. No one would say that you were fulfilling your purpose if your family starved because you were waiting to be discovered as a writer, as a musician, as a poet. So you choose a career, a job that pays the bills, that puts food on the table, and that enables you to have your mornings, your evenings, your weekends, to do what you need to do for your Dharma, to write, to practice, to create. It enables you to meditate, to do yoga, to study your scriptures. So don't think that your Dharma has to be something that pays the bills. That's the other very important piece. Okay, so it's not going to necessarily be romantic and glamorous or fun. There's not only one, and it's not necessarily going to be something that pays your bills. Your purpose is going to be how you move through the world. And when you know the core of who you are, that is going to impact and inform and influence everything you do. I'll give you a personal story about this. It was maybe 7, 8-ish years ago. And I was in Seoul, Korea, in an airport, leaving a very large event in Seoul, Korea, very large interreligious, interfaith, major event. And I was flying to New York, where I was going to be part of a beautiful program at the United Nations for a lot of the work that we are doing there with water, sanitation, hygiene, women. And I was going to be reaching to America a few days prior to the program at the United Nations. And I was going to be doing some cozy songs, meditations, and whatnot with the community there in the New York, New Jersey area. Airport, and I can still picture the gift shop where I was walking right by as I was walking to my gate. I had this moment where I stopped and I just kind of giggled to myself, and I thought, who are you? Like, what are you doing? You know, here you are on the one hand, this religious leader. Here you are on the other hand, this sort of development humanitarian person engaged with, you know, policy in the UN. Here you are doing intimate song and meditation. And I was going to be back in LA and see my family before I came back to India. So then it was, okay, and family, and who are you? And I had this beautiful moment where I realized it's not about being a religious leader or a humanitarian or a teacher or a leader or a daughter. Being a transmitter of love and peace. And I realized in that moment, standing in front of that gift store in the Seoul airport, that my Dharma was to share love and peace. And whether it was on a massive stage, whether it was around a round table gathering, whether it was in a beautiful mandir, whether it was in a school, whether it was working with people in the slums, whether it was back with my own family, wherever I was, it didn't matter. Because who I was, my Dharma was to spread love and peace. And in large ways that had ripple impacts in terms of peace through clean water, peace through being able to not have to defecate in the open and get attacked by wild animals or men, peace through being able to get education, through empowerment, or peace through knowing oneself, through meditation or satsang, it didn't matter. So that knowing of who we are is the core. So in your practice, one of the most basic meditation practices is just, who am I? And a hint, it's not usually how you pay the bills. It's not a lawyer, it's not a doctor, it's not a scientist. Who are you beneath that? Who is the you that walks into the hospital every day? Or walks into the courtroom every day, or walks into the science lab every day, or walks into the classroom every day? Who are you? What is that expression of divinity manifesting? And then just, yeah, we have another few minutes. You tools as you navigate this path of finding the Dharma, finding the purpose, and then unfolding the joy. Because the joy is not something we find. We find the truth, we experience the truth. And that enables us to be in joy, which is the truth of who we are. And by the way, that Dharma of sharing love and peace is not uniquely mine. That's actually all of ours. Because who we are, at the core, when we learn the teaching of the Upanishads, that everything in the universe is pervaded by the divine, right? Isha vasimidam sarvam, yat kincha jagatyam jagat. If we are pervaded by the divine, well, what's the divine? Love, infinity, peace, shanti, shantiru. That of peace, that expression of truth, that expression of love, that expression of consciousness. That is who we all are. So as you move through the world, stay rooted in consciousness. Swami Sarva Priyanandaji gave a beautiful talk about how we get distracted and how distraction pulls us away from joy. If I say to you now, you've got 30 seconds. Get as angry as you possibly can. On the count of 3, in 30 seconds, get angry. 1, 2, 3, go. Can you do it? Right? Are you actually able to get furious? No. Something that makes us upset, but we can't actually generate rage. And the reason is that fury comes when we are unconscious. Anger rises when we are unconscious. You cannot simultaneously be rooted in consciousness and out of your senses and anger. So many of us find ourselves saying things like, well, so I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. That wasn't me. Well, who was it? I mean, the words came out of your mouth. The action came from your hands or your legs or your lips. Who was it if it wasn't you? And what we mean when we say it wasn't me was, it wasn't conscious. And so by staying conscious, staying mindful, staying aware, we have all of the benefits. Number one, we actually can experience joy. Because as I said, you only can experience joy right here, right now. So if I'm not conscious right now, if I'm making a list, or if I'm simultaneously checking my WhatsApps or my Twitter, or if I've got a voice in my head that's saying, yeah, what she's saying is great, but you can never do it. You're too old, you're too young, you're too stupid, you're not spiritual enough. If I'm anywhere other than anchored in my breath, anchored in my head, in this moment, I'm going to miss it. So stay conscious. And anytime the mind wanders, it's like we do in our meditation. Life is, my friends, open-eyed meditation. We don't have meditation and life. We have closed-eyed meditation and open. We have seated meditation and moving through the world meditation. The rules, the teachings, the practices of our meditation are not meant to stay on the cushion. They come with us into life. So whenever your mind wanders, maybe your device beeped or blipped or flashed or something, vibrated, and you want to get distracted, bring it back like you do in meditation. And that doesn't mean never check your devices, but do it consciously. Have a time that you do it, have a way that you do it. It's not that you're a slave to the device or a slave to the algorithm on Facebook that says, send this notification. This one will grab her. Yeah, I saw that social dilemma video too that Swami Sarvapriyanandaji spoke about. It's scary. They are trying to make us slaves, but we are not slaves. We are the embodiments of divinity. We are the embodiments of freedom. Moksha is our highest truth. We've been taught for thousands and thousands and thousands of years not to be slaves of the mind. And today we have to remember not to be slaves of an algorithm. So you bring the mind back to the conscious moment. And it takes practice, just like it does in meditation. But the more you do it in meditation, the more you'll be able to do it in life. And when the mind wanders into thoughts, ask yourself, do I really want to go there? Our thoughts are tickets onto vehicles. I always say, you wouldn't get on a bus or a train or a plane going somewhere you didn't want to go, right? Let's say you're sitting at the gate at the airport waiting to board a flight, and before your flight, another flight comes. Do you get on the plane just because it happens to be there and you're at the gate? The gate agent says, boarding now for the flight to hell, boarding for the flight to misery, boarding for the flight to depression, to anger, to jealousy. You say, oh yeah, I'm here. You sit and you wait. Because you know, I don't want to get on the plane. Mujhe nahi jana wo. I'm not going to misery or depression. In the same way, when our thoughts come, thought that comes that says, he's an idiot, she's an idiot, I'm an idiot. Thought that comes that says, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, I'm not enough. You have a choice to get on it or not to get on it. But we all know where it goes because we've taken that airplane or that train many, many times in our life. We know where it goes. So stay conscious, watch your thoughts, and only get on to the thoughts that are going where you want to go. All the thoughts that come, heading to destinations you don't want to go, just give them a namaskar, wave them goodbye, like you would to the bus if you're standing at a bus stop and not your bus goes by. You just wave nicely to the bus driver, have a nice day, but you don't get on. And that brings us to the third point, which is our expansion of the cup. If I hold up a cup, I have this book. So if I hold up this cup full of water, well, it's empty now, but if we imagine it's full of water, and into this cup, I dump rocks or rocks fall, that cup is going to overflow. It's going to be full of waves and turbulence, and it's going to go all over the place. This is how life is. Rocks come. We are this cup. Rocks come. Those are our challenges, our difficulties. And what most of us try to do is we try to push them away. We try to keep the rocks out of my cup because I don't want to have the storm. The dilemma is that we end up doing that through our whole life. You're just pushing rocks and pushing rocks and pushing rocks. But if you take the same rocks, you drop them into a bathtub, the ripples are very less. And if you drop them in the ocean, almost no impact at all. And so instead of focusing our lives on how do we remove obstacles, challenges, people, difficulties, get this one out of my life, get that one out of my life, right? It's that aspect of, I've just come out of meditation, I'm very peaceful. Don't come near me. Don't talk to me now. You're going to disturb my peace. Or I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. It's going to disturb my peace. Right? I can't go there. I can't meet this person. Disturbs my peace. That's just this constant pushing rocks away from this tiny sense of self in this little cup. Instead, realize you're the ocean. Find that sense of self to know you're the ocean. So yeah, rocks come, situations come, people come, pandemics come. All of it. But if I can remember I'm the ocean, then the ripples are much less. And this is what these practices that we have do. They enable us to remember that. Whereas sadly, most of our thoughts keep us very small, keep us constantly comparing to others. And social media, of course, is the worst, making us really feel, I don't have enough, I don't do enough, I'm not good enough, rich enough, beautiful enough, smart enough, spiritual enough. They did a wonderful study of airplanes and rage on airplanes, because of course, there's lots and lots of stories of people, losing themselves on airplanes, and whether it's against fellow passengers or stewardesses or whatever it is, people frequently have kind of on airplanes in a variety of ways. And of course, they get these days shared on social media, but scientists have been studying this for a while. Like what causes it? Is it fear? Is it anxiety of the plane? Is it alcohol? What is it? And they found something really, really, really interesting, which was that the rate of rage on airplanes are much more closely connected to whether that plane is a one-class plane. So for example, you take something like Southwest. There is no first class. Everybody's sitting in exactly the same place. And then you compare it to airlines where you've got a first class, a business class, a premium economy, and then a regular coach class. And the rates of rage on planes where there are more than one class were much, much, much higher than rage on planes where there's only one class. Much more connected to the rates of rage than alcohol or anxiety or anything else. So it's not that sitting in economy class is the problem. It's that realizing that there are people up there sitting in first class, sitting in business class. And the other quick last piece of this was, then they got more specific. What about planes that had other classes, but that had the entry doors separate? So that boarded people in first and business class through door 1 and boarded people in economy class through door 2 or door 3, so that they never had to walk past people sitting in the first class and the business class. And they found that when you had that situation where they didn't have to see other people getting more than they got, the rates dropped significantly. So simple comparison is a very, very strong indicator of misery, depression, anger, rage, in something even as simple as where you sit for a few hours on an airplane. And then, of course, when we take it into our lives, our careers, our bank accounts, our homes, our bodies, our marriages, our families, it becomes a virus in our minds and our hearts. So don't compare. Don't compare. Anytime that thought comes in your mind, just re-anchor to the infinite nature of yourself. Re-anchor to that beautiful teaching that we're given, and I'll close with this, that we're given in our beautiful mantra of Purnamita, Purnamita, Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. Capital T, that, God, the divine, is infinite, full, born, whole, complete, perfect. And this right here, this, that has been created out of that, is also born, is also full, whole, complete, divine. Infinity divided by 10 is infinity. Infinity divided by 7 billion is infinity. Infinity divided by infinity is infinity. Each of us is infinite. Each of us is poured, and each of us is full and complete and divine and perfect. And the journey to joy is the journey of the self. The journey to the awareness of the self. Not somewhere outside, but the unfolding, the opening of the petals of the flower to the morning sun. Allow yourself every day to open another petal, another petal, another petal. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It's another way we belittle ourselves, demean ourselves, are violent toward ourselves, is we expect so much and then we berate ourselves. See, I did it today and it didn't work. Forget it. one petal a day. Just allow yourself to open. Watch the way that the petals of the flower open to the sun. Slowly, slowly, with love, with gratitude. Practice gratitude every day. Just as joy is not something that comes from getting what we want, but from wanting what we have. Gratitude comes not from getting what I wanted, then being happy, then being grateful, but rather the practice of gratitude for what I already have is one of the easiest, fastest, and surest ways to create joy in your life. Every day, every moment that you can remember, but at the bare minimum, before you get out of bed in the morning, and when you lie in bed before you sleep at night, what are you grateful for? Be grateful for that which is, that whom you are. And then that journey becomes the extraordinary journey of opening and unfolding and blossoming. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity to be with you, to share, and to be together in love and in truth.
Thank you so much, Sadhviji, for that beautiful and inspirational message. I'm so struck by your description of the journey to joy as being very much not a journey to something outside of ourselves, but a deepening journey going within. And I'm, of course, reminded of your collection of teachings that's entitled "Come Home to Yourself," and just reflecting on the journey to joy being really a joyous homecoming, a return to oneself, a return to home in the deepest sense. So thank you so much for that wonderful reminder.
That's why we named the book that.
Beautiful. Thank you. And we want to thank everyone for joining us. We've arrived at the end of our evening together. This is the end of the first session, but we have 2 more sessions to go. So we hope that everyone who is present here can join us again. Session 2 will begin at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can do the conversion to find out what that is where you are. But the next session is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that will be with Radhanath Swami and Sister B.K. Shivani. And then on Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have our 4th and final session, which will be an open Q&A session with all of our speakers. And at that time, we invite you, there's so many wonderful questions that have come into the Q&A box, and unfortunately, we weren't able to take them today, and we won't be able to entertain questions tomorrow, but we hope that you will take these questions and submit them on Sunday for our Q&A panel with all of our speakers. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank our 2 special guest speakers this evening, Sadhvi Bhagavati Saraswati ji and Swami Sarvapriyananda ji. I want to thank our co-sponsors at the Dharmic Life Program at Georgetown University, Hindu Life at Yale University, and the Tufts University Hindu Chaplaincy Program. And on behalf of all of us and on behalf of the Hindu Life Program, we wish you much joy and many blessings, and we hope to see you tomorrow for session 2. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.